Before we dive into today's episode, I want to take a moment to provide a trigger and content warning. On Smart Talks, we often discuss sensitive and potentially distressing topics, including sexual violence, trauma, and abuse. We understand that these conversations can be challenging and may bring up difficult emotions for some of our listeners. Our full content warning pertaining to today's episode is in the show notes. If at any point in time during this episode you feel overwhelmed, we encourage you to take care of yourself, whether that means pausing the episode, seeking support from a trusted person, or accessing resources. Your well-being is our priority. If you or someone you know needs help, you can visit elizabethsmartfoundation.org for a list of resources or contact the National Sexual Assault Hotline at 1-800-656-HOPE. Thank you for joining us today. Now let's begin. Today's episode is truly one of courage, survival, and the power of the human spirit. Our guest, Tanya Kach, has a story that is equally heartbreaking and inspiring. As a young teen, she was struggling at home and in school after her parents' divorce. One day, while at Cornell Middle School in McKeesport, she was skipping class and was caught by a school security guard. This 38-year-old security guard, Thomas Hose, then took an interest in her and became close to her. He learned of her unstable home life, her parents' divorce, and all of her struggles. From there, he gained her trust, preyed on her vulnerabilities, and began to groom her, showering her with gifts, money, candy, and flowers. Like so many young people, Tanya was flattered with the affection of an older person and began to believe that the manipulative and fraudulent promises he was making her of a better life. On February 10, 1996, Kach was lured to Hose's house in McKeesport, where she was then held captive for 10 years. For the first 4 years of her decade-long captivity, Tanya wasn't allowed to leave her abuser's bedroom. She was locked inside and sexually abused. She was fed minimal food, used a metal can as a toilet, and had to endure daily threats of death. Later, when she was 18, she discovered that she was officially registered as a missing person. Years later, she was introduced as Hose's girlfriend. She was allowed to occasionally leave the home because of the threats to her life and the ongoing abuse. Her abuser believed that all of these things would deter her and Tanya wouldn't run away. Eventually, Tanya found courage to confide in a local business owner and to escape. At 24 years old, after 10 years of being held captive, law enforcement came to assist her in escaping her living nightmare. In 2007, her abuser and kidnapper, Thomas Hose, pled guilty to statutory sexual assault, involuntary sexual intercourse, indecent assault, endangering the welfare of children, corruption of a minor, interference with custody of child, and aggravated indecent assault, and was sentenced to and served 15 years in prison. During this horrific time in her life, Tanya faced unimaginable hardships, but through it all, she never lost her strength, her faith, or her hope for a better life. Tanya's story doesn't end there, though. Today, she's an advocate using her voice to raise awareness about the realities of abuse and captivity and offering hope to others that may feel trapped by their circumstances. We are honored to have Tanya here with us today to share her remarkable journey, how she survived, how she healed, how she found justice, and how she is now dedicated to helping others find their way to freedom.
Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of Smart Talks. Today I'm so excited. We have someone so special on that I've known for a while, and she's my dear friend and just someone that I love and admire, and I feel like she's just a beacon to so many. I met her actually. I think it's been probably 18 months or maybe even 2 years ago maybe, but it's been a little while, and I came across her story, and I remember reading her story, and I just remember feeling like she was just such a special woman. I needed to meet her. I needed to talk to her. And I had some colleagues that I had we discussed her story, and they were like, you know what? She has such a powerful, moving, compelling story. We should ask her if she would ever be interested in sharing it on a much larger scale. And so I reached out to her and asked her if she would ever consider like making a movie about her story. And that is actually how we ended up meeting. And as I said, her story is incredible. She's wonderful. I'm just so excited to have her with us today. And so I'd like to introduce everyone to Tanya Kach. Tanya, thank you for
Hello.
coming.
Thank you.
We're so excited to talk with you and for everyone else to hear a little bit about you and your story if they're not already familiar.
Yes, Tanya, I mean, as I mentioned, her story is incredible. So maybe just diving straight in, do you mind sharing your story? Or I know we're on limited time. We couldn't share everything, but like, could you share the condensed version of your story?
I was held captive for 10 years by my school security guard from the time I was 14 to 24. And I survived through it, and I live to tell about it.
And not just that, I mean, Tanya, I feel like you've overcome the odds in every stage of life, because I mean your childhood was not easy, and then
Right.
you made it to high school, and that wasn't easy. And one of the things, like, I guess the advocate in me is just like your story, Tanya. I mean, shows it just explains, I feel like, what grooming is so I don't want to say beautifully because that sounds wrong, but
Right.
so clearly, because I don't think people always understand that grooming isn't just like, hello, come with me, goodbye. Like, it's just not like one fell swoop. I mean, it
Right.
was just like layers. Do you mind
Process.
like kind of talking us through the process that happened in the relationship?
Yeah, it started out with him giving me candy, and then he started giving me money. And then he started buying me jewelry, and that's all part of the grooming process, was buying me those things and luring me in. And he kept telling me that, oh, you'd have such a better life with me rather than what's going on at home. And, he painted like the other side of the fence, the grass was greener. He painted such a good picture and everything. And me hearing that almost every day, and then being bullied in school as well, no love coming from home, I was easily preyed upon. I was easy prey. And that's what he pounced on. And he knew that about me. And he knew about my home situation because he had read my files with the counselor. And so he knew what was going on at home. So he singled in on me.
I just, I mean, I just want everyone to really understand, like, can you imagine being alone? Can you imagine like not having friends, not having family to come and support you, and then finally having one person be kind to you and repeatedly? Can you imagine then how easy it would be to believe this one person being kind to you than everyone else who ignores you? And I just want to stress and emphasize that point to everyone. Listen, that was Tanya's situation. I mean, like, it almost, I mean, I want to say she really didn't have a choice in this.
Well, it's like we're
No.
all looking for that sense of love, belonging, and safety. And if you're not feeling that, it's a natural human instinct to seek that out or want that somewhere else. And this man in your story and others who are grooming are tapping in to any vulnerability. Like you said, he knew this information about you, so he targeted you. And for you,
Mhm.
it's a natural human instinct to want to be loved and safe and belong and be protected. So yeah, it's less of an actual choice as it is the absence of other choices.
Now, I mean, you said, and I mean, we've chatted before, but I mean, when he eventually kidnapped you, he held you for 10 years. That is
Yeah.
such a long period of time. What helped you? What gave you hope?
I never lost my faith. And I knew that somehow God had a purpose for me, but it wasn't what was going on, and I had that will to live, that I was in survival mode,
Mhm.
you know. Um, but I never lost hope. I always thought, well, he kept promising me things, empty promises, like, oh, we're going to get our own apartment. Oh, will you marry me? And things like that. And, but those promises ended up being empty promises and broken promises. And, then things look really bleak. And I still tried to find the light in the tunnel of darkness.
It's incredible strength.
It really is. And I feel like that is like just, I feel like that is innately you. I feel like you, from just throughout our relationship, and the more that I've got to know about your story and the more that I've got to know you, that you just like innately hold to the light. And I love that about you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm super curious, Tanya, what made you make the decision to kind of in such a on such a big stage kind of tell and share your story? Was it a conscious choice or like different decision that you made, or had you kind of always been talking about your story and so this just felt like a natural progression to help other people?
Well, at one point, right before Elizabeth contacted me about the movie, I had said that I was done doing interviews and that I was just, I was going to stop and just live, my life without talking about it again.
Mm-hmm.
And it was when Elizabeth messaged me that, I felt that that was like God tapping me on the shoulder saying, hey, you're not done, you know? And I wrote her back right away and we talked and everything came about and we made this great movie and, you know, but I do it to help others. I get so many messages from women that are going through an abusive relationship where they were in one or they were abused growing up, and they feel they can talk to me and open up to me and we conversate and I never really ignore the messages. I try to get back to everybody. Um, but by doing that, I just want to help women and help people.
I think that's incredible for you to take, one of the worst experiences or the worst experience of your life and to be able to open up and share that with others with the goal of helping. Just again, we've kind of talked about this as a theme, like bringing light to this dark, but for you to use your experiences to share with other people, I think takes an incredibly brave and courageous and strong person. And I think you've seen like through sharing through the movie, but then also with others contacting you, it has made a difference. It has, I think, brought awareness to these issues, talking about grooming, talking about abuse in relationships. So I think it's just so incredible that you've dedicated your life to help others in that way. It's so selfless.
Thank you.
Well, and even beyond that, like even if you had written me back, or even if you had never written me back at all, like I would have understood.
Yeah.
Because sharing your story, and especially in such a big way, like it does open up your vulnerabilities again, and it can be, emotionally painful. I mean, even going back for me and rewatching your movie that we made together, like I feel like it was very well done. I feel like the actors did a great job, and I watch it and like my heart hurts, but then I like think of you, someone that I care about and I like think that's your real story. Like that's your life. Like it's just
Right.
like I would not have blamed you. I would have never blamed you for a second had you ever at any point told me no. I would have been like, I understand. I
Aw.
understand completely.
But I wanted to get it out there and it has helped a lot. with all the messages, like I said, that I get, it's helped a lot. And, I just got a message the other day saying that a mom telling me that she watched it with her 14-year-old daughter, and to make her aware of, what could happen.
It's true. I feel like responsible storytelling is so effective, is such an effective tool in advocacy, because I mean, right now I think we're like living in a true crime boom. Like, not every podcast, but many podcasts, many TV shows, they're about true crime, or they're crime related. And I can think of people right off the top of my head who have told me their stories, and they said, I didn't know what I experienced was abuse until I saw someone else's story like mine on TV, or because I watched Law and Order SVU, and there was a story featured on there that was like what happened to me, and it was then in that moment that I realized what I was going through was not okay. And so I 100% know, like, your story has done the same thing. I know 100% that there have been people who have watched it and who have been impacted for watching it. I mean, you just share it, obviously, but
Yeah.
it does make such a difference to share your story. What do you feel like has helped you to move on with your life? Because I mean, you didn't just crawl back into bed and hide under the covers. I mean, you moved on with your life. Like, you have had a job, or you have a job, and you've gotten married, and I met your husband. He's lovely. You seem like you have a wonderful life now. What helped you to do that?
What helped me do that was just, like I said, never losing hope. And also, what helped me was the intense therapy that I was in as well, to help me get back into society,
Yeah.
to help me cope, and so, with both of those, and like I said, never losing hope, and I wanted to try and live a normal life.
Mhm.
I just, I didn't want to be known as, oh, just this girl that was held captive. And, I was like, I want to be normal. I just want a normal job and, and work. And that's what I did. And if it wasn't for me working, I wouldn't have met my husband.
That's beautiful. For everyone who maybe isn't as familiar with your story or hasn't watched your movie, which of course we're going to talk about and encourage people to watch, but can you give them kind of like the highlights of how that experience ended? And then I would really love for people to hear about your perpetrator abuser being brought to justice and what that experience was like for you.
Yeah, no, how it ended was there was a convenience store that was a couple blocks up, and the store owner and him and his wife and his daughter had befriended me, and I had worked there, a little bit, and Joe was his name that owned the store. Joe just felt something was off about me. Like something wasn't right. Oh, I was with this older man, but I'd had no family in my life. And, and I was so young, in my 20s and everything. And by him pushing, asking me questions, I eventually broke down and I told him who I was. And, and I knew I was on the missing and exploited children's thing because Tom had found that out, and he said, oh, they just transfer your case after you're 18 to that. And, like he gave me some spiel about it. But, Joe looked it up, and it was the real deal. And he called the police, and I went back to that house that day to do everything normal until the police arrived. And it felt like forever, but they finally came and they got me out of there.
It's amazing. I think sometimes it's so like that one person can make such a difference. And I think that's something that we talk about all the time with awareness, knowing what to look for. And like you always talk about creating a compassionate, society that can be there to
Yeah.
support survivors. Like in your story, I just think that's like you were so brave. you made a difference, and you are so brave and courageous sharing your story with the world. And also, this good Samaritan and this person knew what to look for, asked you questions,
Mm-hmm.
supported you, and made such a life-changing difference to help support you in exiting that abusive and terrible situation.
I mean, anyone who says one person can't make a difference, or whether I'm there or not won't make a difference, they're wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, in my case, they're wrong.
Yeah.
In your case, they were wrong. One person absolutely can make a difference. And I think probably the greatest threat to society is apathy, which is terrifying because I feel like we live in a world that, unfortunately, I would say does have a lot of apathy. So if you're listening to this and you ever see something that does not seem right, call the police, because the best case scenario is that you're wrong. That's the best case scenario. The best case scenario is that there's nothing wrong with the situation. The worst case scenario is actually that you were right and that there's someone in a dangerous situation who's being abused or who's being hurt. So please, to everyone who's listening to this, please don't be apathetic. Please be alert. Please trust your instinct. Please don't be afraid to act. Take action, because you never know whose life you might be saving. But continuing on kind of with that question, how did you feel like your case was treated after you were rescued? How do you feel about the court process and what happened with your perpetrator?
To be honest, I was not happy that, he only got 5 to 15.
Yeah.
Because that's a short sentence
Crazy.
for what he had done.
Yeah, I'm with you on
Absolutely.
that.
Yeah, 100%. We support that. We totally agree.
But at the time, the district attorney and the judge didn't think I was mentally capable of going through a trial. And then there was that chance that you have that one juror that sides with him and then he's free, and this was guaranteed time. It was a plea bargain he had taken. And so I agreed to it. Should it have been a lot more time? Yes, because if I would have went to trial, he could have got 72 years. But they were leery about, and my mental state at the time. I hadn't gone through therapy yet at the time and everything. So they were afraid to put me on trial, to put that on trial and put me through that.
I mean, there's a part of me that has some compassion towards the prosecution, because only 1 out of 1,000 predators is ever successfully prosecuted. So, I mean, the successful prosecution rates are horrible. They're in the gutter. They're non-existent. And I mean, the courtroom can be a very, very difficult place to be. I mean, it's not, I've said this before, and I'm sure I'll continue to say it until things change, which I don't want to say never, because that seems pretty pessimistic, but things seem to be awfully slow. But I don't think we really have a justice system. I think we have a legal system. And the legal system that we do have is not a victim-friendly place.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
So do you feel like, I mean, given that process and kind of having to agree for this plea bargain, do you really feel like justice was served in your case? Do you feel like you've gotten justice for all of everything that happened to you?
In some ways, yes, and in some ways, no. When he was still in prison and the 5 years came up, and then he was up for parole, almost every year. And I'd write into the parole board, and then I would post on my social media asking people to write in on why he shouldn't be released. And, with doing that, how can I word it? Like I was 50-50 on it, because I wanted 10 for 10, definitely, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Yeah.
He held me for 10 years. Therefore, I want you held for 10 years. But he got 5 extra years. Now, that's why part of me is like, he should have got the 70 some years, which he'd never get out, you know.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I can understand that. I think it's like you said, it's just a difficult system. I understand the legal system in terms of right to face the accuser, but I hate what we do to survivors. That survivors and having to go to court, having to tell your story, having to relive all of that trauma, be re-traumatized,
Be
that
cross-examined,
yeah,
be questioned.
like I hate that it is so focused on the person who lived through those horrors and that trauma, that person is so central to the case in bringing a perpetrator or abuser to justice. It seems so backwards.
I know. Growing up, I was like, oh, it's so great that here in America, you're innocent until proven guilty. And then I was kidnapped and everything that went along with it. And I got out, or I was rescued. Sounds like I got out of jail. No, I was rescued. And ever since then, I'm like, I don't know that that's the best. Maybe it should be guilty until proven innocent. Maybe we
Yeah.
should be a little bit harsher, because how many perpetrators are still out there walking on the streets? How many perpetrators go on to reoffend? Like, I think in what I've seen, people who sexually abuse one person, it's not just one person.
Yeah.
It's not their first time. By the time they actually are caught, it's after they've abused many, many children, or many, not just children, but many victims. So,
And escalating too
yes,
in severity. Yeah, absolutely.
yes, I wish we could change it. But maybe moving on to a happier topic. What helps you to get up each day now?
What makes me get up and helps me get up each day now you know, is knowing that I am helping people, and that every day I'm helping people, either by them reading my book or watching the movie or seeing any of my other interviews, that I've done, you know, and waking up to these wonderful messages that I get every day that are so beautiful from so many women, you know. And also what gets me up is my husband, we're going on 16 years, and we have grandkids together. We have a granddaughter and a grandson, and I have my grandson a lot, and he's 5. So he's a handful.
How has what has it, I'm curious his perspective, if you've ever talked to him about kind of what it's been like to support you throughout your healing journey, or what you've needed from that relationship too. Elizabeth and I have been talking a little bit about the role that partners and families can kind of play in supporting survivors. So I'm just kind of curious, like your dynamic and your experience or your advice for everyone.
My husband has really done a lot, to help me experience normal life a lot that I had missed. Like he they have this thing here in Pittsburgh called the Second Chance Prom. Well, I never got to go to the prom. My husband went and contacted them and got tickets, and we went, and it was great, and that was something
I do
that
too.
I cherish, because I went to the prom, and I got to go with the man of my dreams. And, you know, uh, he has been my rock. He supports me in everything, you know, every day. He encourages me, every day he tells me that how beautiful and smart I am and everything. Like he's godsend.
Every survivor deserves that. I think even you just being willing to talk about that part of your life, your relationship with your husband, is is so important. Because I mean, just recently, I was then at an event, and afterwards, I was approached by a young woman, and she was asking me how I could ever trust again, how I could ever get in a relationship, how I could ever trust not just like my body, but like my heart with another man after everything that had happened. And I actually feel like this part is often not spoken about the way that it should be, because we focus so much on, what happened, the crime, the trauma, but actually sometimes the next steps in life are equally as difficult, but just in a different way. And it's that learning to trust. And I just think you being willing to talk about your husband, like, I just want every survivor out there to hear it. Good men exist, and you deserve a good man. As a survivor, you are entitled to a good man. Do not settle for anything less.
Like I said, I've been blessed with Carl. Absolutely.
I love that.
Me too.
Well, just to wrap up, we've got a few just rapid fire questions, just a couple of questions, just fun questions to end with. So I'll start. Do you prefer summer or winter?
Summer.
Okay, salty or sweet?
Sweet.
Oh, I've got one.
Okay, go ahead.
Cats or dogs?
Both. I have both.
Oh, you're an animal lover then. Okay.
Yes.
We won't make you choose.
What was the other one? I can't remember.
I'm trying to remember our other one. Do you remember? Oh, chocolate or vanilla?
Vanilla.
Yes. Do you just want to talk about the name, the title of your book, and maybe where they could find it?
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yes.
also the title of your movie.
Yes, absolutely. My book is written with Lawrence Fisher, and it's called Memoir of a Milk Carton Kid, and it's available through Amazon, if you go on Amazon. And the movie is The Girl Locked Upstairs, and it's on LMN and Lifetime TV.
Perfect.
And it's amazing. I've read the book and I've watched the movie repeatedly, and I will put my endorsement to both.
Thanks so much for being here with us today, Tanya.
Thank you so much.
That's it for today's episode of Smart Talks. Thank you so much for joining us as we dive into these important conversations about creating a safer, more compassionate world. Remember, sexual violence affects so many, but together we can make a difference by raising awareness, supporting survivors, and advocating for change. If today's episode resonated with you, or if you know someone who would benefit from hearing this, please share it with them. Let's keep the conversation going because every voice matters. You can find more resources and ways to get involved on our website at elizabethsmartfoundation.org. And if you're able, consider making a donation to help us continue our work to end sexual violence and support survivors. Every contribution, big or small, makes a huge difference. And we'd love to hear from you. Connect with us on social media. You'll find us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and TikTok. Leave us a review from wherever you're listening. Your feedback helps us to improve and reach even more people. Thanks again for being here, and until next time, remember that each voice can spark change, and together we can make the world a safer place for everyone.